one sticking out right there. That branch. I wonder what's happening there. Let's see. I think this one, this is a good old trick I think I remember you teaching me back in the day. You know how it breaks?
Yep.
You get the break and the little fray edge there. And it's just amazing how some of these little things, when being around you in the past, how I remember you used to say you'd learn something, take you 15 years to figure out. I'll show you in 30 seconds.
Yeah. I mean, it did. It took me sometimes 10 or 15 years to figure stuff out.
So you would just sit for like, or with a thing, you see periodically every once in a while for 15 years trying to figure out something, just observing it. And then what would go off? What would be the kind of light bulb?
Boy, it's hard to pinpoint one thing.
Well, maybe not one thing, but you know, it's just an overall kind of process. So you come across something, you don't know what it is.
A good example was the deer incisor marks in the forest we saw yesterday.
Yeah.
And you see some fresh incisor marks. And we had some real, very old incisor marks. And you would never know. It would take years, it took years and years to see all the markings in between, or to watch it age in the tree over the years, going back to that tree and watching it change.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, you might speculate that, oh, those are old deer incisor marks. But the light goes off is when you start to see all the in-between that confirms your speculation or your assumption.
Yeah.
But see, me, if you're searching for the truth, you really want to confirm that speculation.
So you're just waiting in openness to just see how it plays out.
We could say
for
it
years,
that way,
right?
Yeah, we could.
Look at this over here. Right? Fresher looking incisor scrapes, which we'd call them, right?
Yeah.
On the witch hazel. So, you know, I've learned that in the past, you know, so that's what comes to mind. But then I come from this.
Right.
Right? Go to something like this over there.
Right.
It doesn't look anything like, and you might want to get this on film, what the difference is.
Yeah.
Teeth marks
That's
in there.
obvious.
That's obvious.
It's fresher.
Come to something like that.
And it's far less obvious.
Far less obvious. You know, you just see the subtleties of it, but it's still the same species or some similar.
It's still right. So what's interesting to me about this is, you know, that is not just speculation on my part, but I've watched this, not in this particular place, but in other places and in many places, I've watched these changes take place through the years. Now I've come back to look at it many years later and watched the process and watched the change, so that I'm not just extrapolating from that to that. I've seen all the in-between sign as well. So again, it's all that layering, and it's all that spending a lot of time in the forest and being familiar and intimate. There's an intimacy. That's what observation brings, is intimacy. And that's a good example, I think, of an intimacy with how things change and what's happening in the forest.
Right, so you're saying over years of going to the same places, you'd see these changes from this to that.
Right, and I would not be satisfied. Like if I just saw that and I saw this, I could speculate that this is an older version of that scraping over there, the incisor scraping over there. But I wouldn't be happy until I seen all the in-between stuff. You know what I mean? To verify loose conclusion coming up in openness.
Right. So you got that experience. It's very hard for a new person to come and see that obvious sign and walk by this. That might not stand out and mean anything to them to see this here, just because they saw
And
that.
especially this. But that's from incisor scrape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, is there ever a time when you've come across something like that, and for instance, the what was it? Maybe some other sign that you're unfamiliar with, but you think, oh well, geez, it looks similar to that. Maybe it could look like that. You know, you look at that,
Yeah.
something like very clear, but there's a kind of like a process that isn't just learned through experience. There's a kind of creativity around an idea that might just come into your head that associates all this experience that you have, that interprets something new to you. That's your best hunch, which might wind up actually being the sign the way it was made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's things like
Yeah,
that
sure.
too. It's not always just about,
Right.
I've seen this over 15 years, I've come back to it.
It isn't always just about that, and that's a good point.
There's a creativity that can come into the process,
Yep.
that, in openness, that kind of comes in to inform all that experience.
Sure.
It's not completely all based on just the time, but there's a big part of it, I would
Yeah.
suppose.
Find something there, George?
Just looking around. I guess this is part of the search image. You find a tree like this, and then, you start to wonder if squirrels or whatnot, red squirrel might be marking the side of this. A search image of maybe a raccoon coming around here, big tree like this, maybe scats. Looks like there's plenty of forks up here where a raccoon might go up. So, I'm kind of using all that previous knowledge and experience that I have to look for the most likely spot I might find these things, right?
Right. So, as you become intimate with the forest and you become intimate with the animals, like you track a fisher long enough, as you're tracking a fisher, you start to know where it's going to go before it goes there. I mean, I'm serious, I'm not just exaggerating. You get to know, fishers are attracted to certain kind of old snags. And fishers go in, they zigzag and they don't go in a straight line normally. They might go in a straight line, but they'll be all zigzagged all the way up. But you see an old snag off to the side or something, and you say, that fish is going to end up there. Because you're so used to them, they'll go to every one, and sure enough, that fisher goes to that because you have some intimacy with that animal from tracking it. Just like a bobcat, when you track a bobcat long enough, you realize it urinates on certain types of, it gravitates to certain kinds of trees and old stumps and things to urinate on.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, we used to track bobcats just with our noses. Mm-hmm. We could tell which side they were urinating on, and we know what direction from that they walked in, and we would find the next object just by being familiar with the objects they urinated on, and we were scent tracking bobcats.
Yeah.
But there needed to be some layering and some intimacy before we could do that.
Tracking, I don't know if you look at it this way, but there's disturbance in something that pops out as something different from the rest of what's happening here. So that that kind of catches my eye to wonder.
Well, yeah, right. And the way I would, if you don't mind, the way I used to talk to my students about that was the fact that when you become intimate with the forest, you're intimate with how, well, just take a hemlock, for instance. You become intimate with a hemlock's development from a little sapling. You get to know what they normally look when nothing is interfering with their growth. And you know, what they look like when they get older and the shape they take. And there's an intimacy with lots of different plant species and things like that in the forest. Well, as soon as those normal growth patterns are disturbed, because you're intimate with all the normal growth patterns, you immediately detect a disturbance. But you're not going to detect the disturbance if it's not that kind of intimacy. It's going to be really hard.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I think, the way I used to try to explain it.
You know, I'm noticing a lot of this, Paul, around in the walk out here. Just some big chunks of soil. Clods. Just big chunks taken out, you know, look at the size of that. There was a few more, or at least one more that I saw right back over there. Just a whole big chunk of soil. For me, that doesn't really fit a wild animal search image. This type of big removed piece like that. You know, when I go through my file cards of things that will come to mind of an animal sign that I've seen in the past do this,
Right.
that really isn't one
Seen that too.
that I've seen. Going through wild animals.
Yeah, what flashed up for me was yellow jackets when you put your hand in there.
Something dug that out.
No, but I'm not saying that's what happened, but this occurred to me that
Well,
something was at the yellow jackets.
this,
But I don't think so.
yeah, it's
But
just
that just flashed.
a very
Yeah, it is odd.
deep, big clod. You know, there doesn't look like much throw.
Yeah.
Let's actually look at, let me check the other one real quick, because it was just right here.
Yep, might fill in some blanks.
This was it here.
Ah, boy, ain't that interesting. That's really
It's
interesting.
just a big clump of,
Yeah, and this is the top side here.
yeah,
No,
big clump of earth
that's
just
the bottom side.
removed.
Yeah, look at that sharp angle.
Yep. I mean, I've got things that are popping into my head, but the reasoning for it is very odd.
What's that? Now, there has been some mushroom hunters around. You think?
Well, I'm wondering if they're shovel.
And you know, there's people up in here who are get those metal detectors. Because that's an awful sharp edge to that.
Yeah, on this piece here. See that?
Yeah.
I mean, we could take this out and
Yeah.
fit that right in.
Yes. Look at this
Just the way
sharp
this
edge.
is
Look at this.
pushed down in there like that, right?
Yeah. So. All right. Looks like to me it's probably human.
Yeah. Well,
Somebody's digging for something.
yeah, interesting that it's.
And they had some people around here this summer asking our neighbor if they could do some, use their metal detectors in the woods.
You know, one thing you probably found this when you were teaching tracking is the pitfall of saying we're going animal tracking, and then everything that we find comes out there is that some wild animal had did it. We almost forget that humans are making signs out there. You know, it's easy to forget that we were making plenty of signs out here ourselves.
And that was down like that.
Yeah.
If an animal would have dug that out, it would have turned it over. That was dug out and placed down.
I really wonder what
Yeah, I
the
can't
purpose
imagine
of that is. That.
somebody didn't dig that out. It seems pretty clear to me that somebody.
Yeah. There's a good amount of debris pulled back here and there. You know, a lot of broken stuff here, a little bit of one right there. There's a root that has been snapped right there. You know, roots are pretty tough, right? Yeah. A bit of paw action, I would think, or hoofing. There's a little root down in here.
Yeah, I'm wondering about beaver.
I wonder. There could have been a little feeding sign on that, you know.
It's not an Indian cucumber root, is it?
Not sure. I don't know. Might be.
Well, I'm not going to taste it. In case it ain't.
It might be. I don't know. I don't see any other remnants of it, but I do see a little bit of the, and then definitely pulled this back and ate some of the plant matter in there.
Well, we are right next to a beaver pond here.
There's another one here. That's right in line with the edge of the water there.
Now look, see another root. See it? And look at that.
Yep.
Look at that beaver. See? See the cut marks on that?
Yeah, right there, right?
Yeah.
Yep. There we go.
Yep. So this is interesting. Things get confirmed later.
Mm-hmm.
So now we've confirmed, we can be pretty sure, like I had an assumption on beaver on that.
Yeah.
But remember how sometimes we'd be in the forest with the apprentices and I would say, well, that may clarify itself later.
Yeah.
That's what happened now.
Yep.
So a lot of times we just hold it in suspension, we hold it in openness, and we keep observing. This is the process of just observation, clarified, put it together, and we may get further clarification yet to, you know. Now it's still a suspended assumption. The assumption is much more solid now, but we still can suspend it, and as we go along, it may be further, it may gain solidity, you know.